Welcome everybody, and thank you for clicking on my video today. If you did click on, it's probably because you want to know what goes on in the land of Reddit. Maybe you want to scare yourself to sleep, or maybe you want to scare yourself awake. There's no judgment here. But without further ado, let's get on to hearing some scary stories from strangers on the internet that we don't even know. When I was 9, 2 older boys tied me to a tree and tried to set me on fire. Holy crap. Someone put, "Did you die?" and the OP responded, "Obviously not." My neighbour heard me screaming and came to my rescue. It was the scariest thing I ever experienced. Someone's then replied, "What? Boring, so you didn't died." Okay, really, I would like to know who these older boys are and how they came up with a plan together to kidnap what I'm presuming is a female and tie her to a tree and then try to set her on fire. Who thinks to do that? Like, who says to their best mate, "Oh bro, do you want to go set some girls on fire today if we can find one that's small enough for us to tie to a tree?" Yeah bro, that's a well good idea. When I was about 8 years old, I remember this time my brother and I were waiting for our bus to pick us up from school, and it was still dark outside. It was a pretty small town, so our bus had to drive pretty far to come and get us. I remember it was pretty cold outside, so we would set our backpacks on the ground and sit on them and bundle up in our coats while we waited for the bus to come. We both saw this figure walking down the road toward us, and we thought it was one of the older kids coming to the bus stop. When he got close to us, we noticed it was a man and he was carrying a shovel. He came up to us and asked if we saw someone walk by there not too long ago. We both said no, and he walked off in the opposite direction. I didn't think much of it as a kid because I didn't make any connections. But I think about it now as an adult and think, holy shit, that guy was carrying a shovel looking for some guy and the sun hadn't even risen yet. It was strange for sure. A lot of strange stuff happened where I used to live, and I think about it often. Straight off the bat, I wouldn't, or should I say straight off the shovel.
Oh my god.
See myself out. Straight away, I wouldn't say this was particularly creepy. I also wouldn't say that it was weird for somebody to be walking around early in the morning with a shovel. Mainly just because farmers exist, and I'm pretty sure they are like the peak for getting up super early in the morning. And I just kind of feel like maybe this guy was just looking for his son or something. Maybe they had an argument and he ran off and this guy's just looking for him. Like, his son didn't want to work at 5 a.m. in the morning on the farm that day, so he just stormed off, and this guy's like, "Oh, for God's sake, I gotta go get him now." And he just happened to be carrying a shovel. I don't know. I mean, I kind of feel like if this guy was really creepy, he wouldn't have I kind of feel like he wouldn't have approached a school bus full of people with his creepy vibes. Like, I feel like if he was guilty of doing something against the law, like chasing someone down with a shovel with the intent of knocking them out and burying them with it, I feel like he probably would have been a little bit more sketchy about who he approached and like who got to see him at that time in the morning. When I was 6 to 7, my mum, her boyfriend, my older sister and I lived in a very remote area where there weren't that many people around there except for my neighbours, who me and my sister were close to at the time. Anyway, our house was run down, but besides that I found the place very scary and creepy because there were no fencing around my house and my neighbours, so our backyards would lead out to a big field with really dark woods. I'm creeped out already. Firstly, this is how every single good horror movie starts. Like, there's always a house that's in the middle of nowhere and is surrounded by woods. Who are these people that buy these houses? Like, would you seriously go to a house viewing? You're looking for your first house, right? And the first thing you'd notice when you get there is it's just surrounded by woods. There's no protective fence at all, and there's barely any neighbours or shops around. Like, it's just you and this house, and you're telling me that you want to move in, and you see that house and you think, "Oh, it's our dream come true." I don't think so. I don't know who these people are that choose these houses for all these things to go wrong. Okay, so the house is surrounded by really dark woods in the back of the fields. They were 30 to 40 feet long from the distance to the houses and woods. But one day when we arrived home, I was the last to go in the house, and when I got to the door, I heard a noise behind me, and I looked back and saw a humanoid figure standing behind the truck to be human. I think they meant too tall to be human, but also looked like a human, and I knew we were making eye contact because I had a chill run from my head to my toes as I was standing there looking at it. My mum called me, and as soon as she said, "Raven, come inside," the figure crouched down on all fours and ran to my neighbour's backyard, and I ran inside at that point. I was terrified, and a few minutes later, me and my sister heard a horrific screech that scared the absolute shit out of us. And the worst part about all of it was that it was coming from my neighbour's house. I didn't see them the next day either. Alright, so firstly, I would move. Secondly, I feel like if there was a scream from next door, right, and you didn't see your neighbours the next day, it wouldn't be particularly out of the ordinary. But then if you see like loads of police tape and ambulances outside the neighbour's house at some point, that might be an indication that that scream was something wrong. I'd also like to point out that nowhere in this did they suggest that they had moved or ran away or even tried to get away from this house. There is no way in hell I would be staying in this house. OP, you're a lot braver than me. I'm Ash and I'm 16, and this happened 4 nights ago. Not too long ago, I decided to go on a walk. I live in a rural area where there's really no one out. Besides, it was 15 degrees Fahrenheit and 12:15 AM, so no one should be out anyway. Except you. What are you doing out? Huh? At 16 years old, definitely should not be out at 12, like midnight, you know? Just saying. And it's cold. Like, what? This is another thing that I don't get. Teenagers and kids seem to have this ability to just ignore freezing cold temperature. Like they seem to not feel it. I see them walking around in their shirts and shorts and things in winter, and they just don't seem to feel cold. You offer them a jacket and they always say, "No thanks, I'm good. I'd rather show off my Nike brand t-shirt," you know? How dare you try to ruin my outfit with sensible layers? There are very little street lights, and you would need a flashlight to see. I was about halfway around the block when I came to the first and only street light that's on this route. There was a shadow under the little light that this street light produces. It was still and it didn't move, and to be honest, it kind of creeped me out. The thing about the road I walked on is it's barely wide enough to fit a car, so if I walked past this light, I would be close enough for this person to run up to me without giving me time to run. Okay. If this was me, I would stay very still, stare at them intently, and then I would slowly back away. Just slowly until they can't see me anymore, and then you would turn around and run. I stood there for a second and texted my dad. At first he was like,
"Just walk past them, it should be fine."
Then he got mad that I was even out so late in the middle of winter. See, that's good parenting. That is good parenting. What are you doing out at midnight in the middle of winter? I walked past them like my dad said, but the rest of the walk, that person would be right behind me at the same distance, never closer or farther. When I got to my driveway, I ran up it, slipped on ice, cut myself, and effectively woke up my grandpa by slamming the door. I haven't gone on a walk since. I mean, at least this kid learnt a lesson, right? I mean, it's more than can be said for a lot of people. There's a lot of people that go out, they have like a near miss, and then they go out again, and it's like, you not learn anything the first time? Once I was at a sleepover. It was one of my closest friends at the time. It was all fun and I enjoyed myself, but the dad seemed weird. Turns out it wasn't her dad, it was a stranger that had kidnapped her dad and pretended to be him. What? How does that even happen? How do you kidnap a whole dad? You just sort of grab his head and shove it under your jacket like this.
Just stop moving, it's gonna be fine.
I know how you kidnap a dad. You tell him that you've got a man cave, the Lord of the Rings box set, a whole crate of beer, any brand, and I don't know, steak. Steak, that's how you kidnap a dad. Or, for those like fitness guru dads, you keep the steak because they, you know, steak, and then you tell them you've got a home gym. And when they get to the home gym, you knock them out with one of the dumbbells while you imposter on their life and make their kid believe that you're their dad. Like, surely the kid would have known that it's not their dad. Surely there's like a bit of facial hair that's out of place, or the nose is a little bit different, or their ears are a bit bigger. Like, how does that happen? When I was around 5 or 6, I lived in a very shady neighbourhood. My dad went to work, my mum was in jail, and our babysitter invited some friends, and we had a party. But already it sounds like the perfect family, let's be fair. Can't imagine what's going to go wrong with this one. But when we were walking to our house after picking her friends up, we seen a white figure with long black hair staring at us. You see, already I would be intimidated. 1, because this figure has more hair than me, and 2, why is it always a white, ghostly-like figure with long black hair? That's just creepy. It's already creepy. I don't even need to see this figure to know that it is creepy, and I would not be staying there long. The white figure with long black hair staring at us. Mind you, this isn't the first time we've seen this figure. It's not the first time? And you're still there? When we all saw it, I was on a girl's shoulders and almost fell when we were all running. Couple years later, her dad set her house on fire and she didn't make it, sadly. What the heck? What is this family dynamic? Fire again, you know? Like, what is it with people setting each other on fire? This isn't normal behaviour. Like, imagine coming home one day, you've had a long day at the office, you're a bit frustrated because some prick just stole your sandwich out of the container in the fridge that you clearly left your name on, and then some other prick took a swig of your Coke while you were in the bathroom. Right? And then your boss is being all mawky with you because his wife has left and he's taking it out on all of his employees, so he's giving you all a pay cut instead of a pay rise like he promised last month, and productivity has decreased and everybody's just mad, right? So you've had a really crap day at the office. You come home and you think, right, at least I get to put my feet up and have a couple of bits. No, because your kids have decided to throw a massive party with their babysitter who's probably underage. So instead of paying the babysitter and sending her on your way, you think, do you know what? I'm gonna set the house on fire. The dude who lives across the street from me went to jail for trying to beat a disabled kid to death on my elementary school sidewalk. Nah, come on. Nah. This is just too sick. This can't possibly be real. The kid was like 14 or 15 and he was 18 or 19. One day my neighbour invited the 14-year-old over while he was super drunk. Then he took the kid outside, threw him out of his wheelchair, dragged him to the sidewalk by my elementary school and beat him until he thought he was... It was the middle of the night. What? Then he went to the kid's house, got his mum, and dragged the mum to her son's body so she could see what he had done. This just gets worse and worse. She managed to call the police and an ambulance just in time, but her son's disability worsened and he's traumatised for life. I'm not surprised. I'm traumatised just reading this story. I mean, okay, right, this guy was super drunk, right? But when you get super drunk, you tend to just get the munchies or fall asleep. You don't sort of think, I'm so bored, what can I do? Why no? I'm gonna ring my neighbour up, entice him out in the middle of the night, and then just like chuck him out of his wheelchair. This person must have been thinking about this for a while before they actually actioned it, because there's no way that you just have this drunken thought and suddenly this urge for violence. They must have had these urges to do something horrible for quite a while, and they were just drunk, and that's maybe what brought it, to fruition. I refuse to believe that this was just an act of random violence on a whim that they just randomly decided to do one night. That just doesn't happen, right? Alright, this one is the last one, but it's also the longest one, and it's actually 2 stories by the same person, so this person's probably really unlucky. I have 2 stories to tell. Both take place in German forest that is very popular by hikers like me. It was around 1 year ago. The trip was in the middle of the week. I drove to the parking lot and it was totally empty. On the weekend, you normally find 20 to 40 cars over there, but this time I was absolutely alone. I went my normal route. I've hiked already more than 10 times. After a few kilometers, the route went along an open field. But before I was able to see the field, screams resounded through the forest. Blood-curdling screams. Inhuman screams. I'm an experienced hiker. I have seen and heard a lot of deers, foxes, wild boars and rabbits. Does a rabbit scream? But this was totally new to me. It was so loud and unnormal, straight out of a horror game. At this point, the hike was over for me. I ran back to my car. And to be honest, this person's smart. Instead of investigating, instead of trying to, decipher what that scream was, or, getting their smartphone out and thinking,
I'm gonna record something cool here.
They just ran. They ran back to the car. This is exactly what I would do. I've never had that instinct of getting my phone out when something bad happens. I know a lot of people seem to have that these days. It's kind of like it's ingrained into us that as soon as something goes wrong, get our phones out and start recording. I can't think like that. In the moment when something goes horribly wrong, my first thought is to react, to either help the person or get myself away if it's something dangerous. I wouldn't stand there trying to find what this noise is. But this person's spot on. They ran straight back to their car. Can't fault that. Survival instinct at its finest. The second story happened a week ago. Also a hiking story. I think this person just needs to stop hiking. Do you know this feeling when you think someone is watching you? But you turn around and see nothing. On one hiking route I used to go a few times per year, I've got this feeling every time I'm in a specific section. Maybe stop going to that section. It's 3 kilometers of pure horror. Really stop going to that section. In this section, things are changing regularly, but not because of humans, because of nature. A lot of trees are falling on the path. I often see deers crossing my way and more wild boar tracks are showing up. So every time I'm here, I'm speeding up, but it's worth it. Is it though? The part of the trail you can see after this section is breathtaking. It's a dense valley like in a grim fairy tale. So on my last hike, I also had to cross the horror section. From the first meter, I've got the chills again and speed up until the moment a deer crossed my way. But it didn't just cross my way. It stopped, looked at me and completely blocked my way.
Hey human, stop! Go where you came from and never come back.
I don't actually know what deers sound like, but I didn't want to go back. I've managed to get 80% off the horror section and knew it'll only be a few more meters until the cool parts of the hike are starting. So I went directly through the forest to get around the deer and it worked. But when I entered the next section, I couldn't calm down. I've still got this feeling that someone or something is following me. I regularly looked behind me, always hoping to see nothing. Slowly, I was calming down after a few more kilometers, thinking about my next rest area. But then my biggest nightmare came true. A giant deer. It's got to be a giant deer. Over the last few weeks, it rains a lot in my region, and the little stream beside my route went to a big river that flooded the path I had to use. The temperatures were around freezing, so it would be a horrible idea to go through the water. Since I was in a dense valley, I had only one way I could go. Back. There are no other routes. To make it even worse, it gets worse. It's winter and I only had 2 more hours until sunset. but I needed more than 3 hours to come to this place. So the solution was to run out of this place, not caring about any animal running in the dense forest, birds or breaking sticks. I was only thinking about my car, my keys, and the moment I could use them to unlock my car. I will never ever visit this part of the forest ever again. At least this person learnt their lesson. They were obviously hiking in this area quite regularly to know that there were risks like this and to know that it was a pretty scary part of the journey, but yet they still wanted to go because whatever was on the other side of this path was so breathtaking that they wanted to see it one more time. But honestly, with that many warning signs, I would have turned back a long time ago. In fact, I wouldn't even be out in the wilderness like that, not hiking by myself. But hey, you know, these avid hikers, they sure love the wilderness and isolation and paths that have never been explored before, and who knows if they're safe or not. Okay, so we've actually come to the end of our video now. That was 10 creepy Reddit stories. If you did enjoy this video, please consider giving it a like, subscribe if you want to see more of my content, and comment down below. Let me know what you thought of these stories. Thanks again for watching, and I'll see you next time.